Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. All right, the Mad King still has a Woody for Harvard University. We're going to dive into that. Also, he cancels his tariffs for now, at least, against the UK. We'll see how that plays out. We'll talk about that. And, more fallout from his crypto dinner. Apparently, dude got on the plane and left as soon as he talked some shit about crypto, which was like old news. Like the crypto bros there were kind of like miffed and pissed off because the food sucked, security was terrible, and Trump didn't stick around to take pictures with the contest winners.
But I believe I saw that Trump media was raising a bunch of money to go out and buy a Bitcoin reserve. So as much as they got maybe like treated like third class citizens at that event, he is still enriching those people by, figuring out ways to flow more money into Bitcoin and devalue the American dollar and in essence weaken America along the way while enriching himself. But, pulling away an important pillar of America's soft power, which is control of the dollar and having such a control of the multi-international economic system. But no, let's have it be in a bunch of dark servers that no one has any idea what's going on. And
such a bad.
And like he's a president who's also an anarchist, basically.
Right.
But really he's just an individualist, which is whatever lines his pockets in the moment.
So riddle me this. Does 2.5 really move the needle? Because he's sitting here, and Brock, I keep saying this over and over again. I know you're tired of hearing me say it, but it appears as if he's got a to-do list that someone has given him, to help sink America, because no one has told us what was wrong with the economy on January 19th, that on January 20th, we had to rip everything to shreds. No one's told us what was wrong with an economy that was the envy of the world.
The economy on January 19th wasn't personally enriching Donald Trump. So what changed in the 24 hours between the 19th and 20th is Donald Trump decided, wait, every element of the government needs to work on my personal behalf. Therefore, he switched, he changed things. He used tariffs as a way to make money. He moved towards Bitcoin because it was a way to personally enrich himself. So, everything has an angle to it, right? He paroled some random corrupt police sheriff in Virginia yesterday because the sheriff's mother had helped fundraise at Mar-a-Lago. That's literally, even at the smallest levels, how the game is being played by Donald Trump in terms of how he uses the presidency. No one cared or believed that one policeman in Virginia who had committed fraud deserved to be pardoned.
He was selling deputyships.
Yeah.
Right? So
there was one beneficiary of that pardon, and two, the perpetrator, right, and Donald Trump. And mom took care of it. White mom, right? Only white people would get this, right? But mom took care of it.
Or famous black people. Remember Wheezy, Lil Wayne got a pardon. Remember that? But you got to be famous, got to make rap songs because he loves the blacks. That's what that's his phrase, not mine.
So it's a personal enrichment. The corruption is so extreme. It's like it stopped being news because it happens every day, right? If it happens every day, it's not news anymore, right, Mark? Right. You're in that business, right? People need something new. So talking about Trump's corruption, it isn't even a story that he pardoned some Yahoo out of Virginia, right? Like it's just it's today's corruption.
Right. Which is the scary part. And nobody's holding him accountable. They've yet to be held accountable for the meme coin, disaster dinner. The tariffs, I think the tariffs, really get his wood up because or a splinter, because it's the one thing he can control, right? Like he can't all of a sudden decide to, make tax hikes on, American corporations. Congress has got to do that.
But he shouldn't have this power of tariffing.
No.
He shouldn't have it. it was ceded to him by the representatives, right? This is not something that presidents generally have the right to do unilaterally. So it was given to him. But, you said it yesterday. It's adoration and adulation, right? So this puts him at the center of the story where every country has to come to him in order to get a deal because he runs the most powerful country in the world. So we the people created the most powerful country in the world, put him atop, and now he just gets to play around and play games with it where he's either making money or feeding his malignant narcissism ego. And those two elements dictate the day-to-day policy and day-to-day activity of the American government.
Right. Which is frightening in and of itself, because this guy really, the more we sit back and listen and watch what he's doing, the more we realize he has no clue, what's going on around him. All he's thinking of is more, give me more. I mean, that's like the level of sophistication he's operating with. I just need more. Get me more money. Give me a deal. And not making any deals. That's the funny part. 90 deals in 90 days. What happened to that? Where'd Peter Navarro go, by the way? He all of a sudden disappeared like he hadn't been heard from. Might be swimming with the fishes in this mafia-style regime. But, the other thing too, Brock, is, the fact that we have to sit here, again, to my white brothers and sisters, what are y'all waiting on? Like, at what point will he have cut into your personal wealth enough for you to get up off the couch and out of your beautiful suburbs and say, oh, well, hell no, the Mad King has got to go? Because, this is having a ripple effect throughout our society. What are our kids learning by watching this guy on a daily basis, right? And then going to school and hearing what kids are saying, because, kids, they're just like little mini jukeboxes. They're just repeating what their parents have said at home. So imagine what's going on in the halls of classrooms and school buildings around the country. And then you've got the deportation deal. And Trump is now back in court asking the Supreme Court, can you lift those, the blockage on us sending people to third countries? I mean, I know it's all Project 2025, and this is part of the deal. It makes absolutely no sense to snatch people off the street, disappear them to African countries, Central American countries. I mean, what is the purpose? And I thought Doji was supposed to help us save money. We're not saving any money by doing that. We're paying to house those people in those countries. That's why they're taking them.
And this is where they've really bumped into the courts, right? The courts have been the strongest in terms of pushing back and criticizing the administration and now and pushing them to unwind what they've deemed to be in essence illegal actions, but they have no enforcement mechanism. So nothing's really happened. No one's come back. I think about it, like the problem with the deportation issue is I think it gets lumped in with it's happening to other people. Mm-hmm. And white America is just, maybe unhappy with it and disgruntled, but you're not getting any, just not staying power to the anger, right? It's just been kind of like, okay. Is it really impacting us? No, we're just going to sit back and turn on Bravo tonight, right? Not worry about how many people got thrown in the back of vans.
Right. With people with masks on, right? In an agency headed by a woman who doesn't understand what habeas corpus is. How scary is that? That cosplay Christie, dog killing, canine killing Christie Nome doesn't even understand what basic rights people have when they're on American soil. And again, only the best people for Trump, right? But really, we know that it's just sycophants who will do whatever he asks, whenever he asks, in order not to let him down and to stay in his good graces. Because
I worry that the high-profile Doji Elon, like Elon Musk was a good lightning rod when he was around, right? A lightning rod for the opposition to get mad at someone and have a point person that's like executing these atrocities. But now it's a little bit of a slower bleed, right? It's less newsworthy stuff. It's just that the rumbling down the field 3 yards in a cloud of dust with less fanfare, a lot of fights in a lot of courts, but less newsworthy stuff. So now I feel like oppositionally, there isn't an energy building in the opposition. And even maybe a few weeks ago, I thought that there was. And I feel like the opposition is kind of stagnated and isn't as aggressive right now.
Right. That's a good point, bro. I mean, I don't see the same kind of aggression that we had a few weeks ago when Elon was at the height of his Doji business and those Tesla, protests were going on.
We had barnstorming. AOC and Bernie were barnstorming. Cory Booker was going 28 hours and then standing on the steps with Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, I don't know. There hasn't been certainly things that have grabbed the national attention.
Right.
So it feels like it's waned. I mean, June 14th becomes a really big day. Trump's birthday party that he calls, it says it's going to be bigger than the Olympics. Right now, he's really getting excited about it for himself and how self-aggrandizing it's going to be. While the left is still calling the No Kings Day, right? Barack Obama Day, 50 marches in 50 states, which I know is more than 50 marches. I've gotten pushback when I keep saying, why doesn't everyone go to DC? Oh, well, it's hard. There aren't any places to stay. It's too far for people to go. I'm like, I get it. I don't mean the person in Santa Fe has to come to DC, but anyone in the nearby area. We only need a couple million. We only need a couple million, right? We don't need 20 million in DC. We need a couple million in DC. There's enough people close enough that can make a day trip, including basically everyone on the East Coast, that can make a day trip of DC and make some big noise in shutting down that parade. So I just don't understand why there's the pushback to do something that's dramatic versus something that's broad, broad and thin versus something that's narrow and deep. Right. And I'm not sure what the thought process is on what's going to be won in 50 marches versus one big military march. I just feel like the military march will win the day, clearly win the day. Right. And you're going to let Trump be a raving, egotistical maniac and get all up in himself about, commander in chief.
Well, because
we have such an opportunity to embarrass him.
Yeah, because that's he's going to be unstoppable if this parade kicks off. If this thing gets off the ground and he's able to stand there like Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin does, in Moscow, I mean, there'll be no stopping this guy. I mean, because he clearly wants to be a little mini Vlad.
It'll be harder to get the military to stand down when he invokes martial law, which is eventually going to happen over a, quote, 4-year term, right? In 4 years, it's happening at some point. Better to cut this at the knees earlier. But it's going to be harder to do after he's had a military parade and the military and the armed forces has gotten used to falling in line behind him. Challenge it now when it's obvious he's lost his marbles, basically, and he hasn't necessarily corralled and gotten that group on board with what he's doing. You would hope not, right? I mean, if isn't 50% of the armed forces people of color, I would hope they are not on board with what he's doing.
Right. And they may come to a fork in the road where they've got to take a stand and say, hell no, I'm not doing this, and put their careers on the line, their aspirations on the line, because the Mad King is out of his fucking mind. And, it's one of those things where, Americans are not used to making sacrifices anymore. Right? We don't have to do, people were so pissed at Colin Kaepernick, right? But think about the sacrifice he made. He gave up doing what he loves.
Yep.
Gave it up. How many of us would do that? How many of his fellow NFL brethren were willing to do that? What, 2? And they found themselves out of the league. They found themselves getting drug tested. They found themselves gone within a year or two. Eric Reed went down to Carolina, stuck around for a year or so. And the linebacker, I think, was out of the league that very next year that knelt with him. So, Americans are not used to making sacrifices, right? We don't want to take a day off from work to go protest, right? I need that day off for my vacation, for my Hawaii trip, in August. But that's just the complacency that we've developed, right? Because we've got nice things, right? But there's so many of us living in America who are struggling to still realize nice things, right? Like, in the richest country in the world, we shouldn't have to struggle and get by. Our billionaires could fund the end of homelessness and hunger in our country. They could fund it. A couple million here, 100 million here, a couple 100 million there, right? Tax write-offs. But no, these guys don't even pay any taxes. They pay less taxes than teachers making 40K a year. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it all gets back to our remember we talked about this before, that toxic selfishness that many of us feel and the complacency that it fuels. And that's where we are now, because it appears to me, people are just not willing, to go out and make a stand and say, nope, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to put it all on the line.
Few, if any, thus far, right? So this is kind of, in a way, we're giving away rights and liberties, right? We're kind of handing them over. And we're also really giving away, really even like kind of some of the privileges of American society. Some of the things that made society great, like, like public education. Right? You had mentioned it before we got on the air. Things like NPR, public broadcasting.
Yep.
Right? The fact that we as Americans, chip in and help each other out in times of trouble, be it FEMA or other aid organizations in the U.S. That's not even counting the foreign aid, right? Forget just what we do for each other, right? What we do for each other here, right? Just the, voting rights that we would take for granted, that now you have to come up with, 10 different forms of identification because the elites are trying to shrink down the voting pool for all of us. But there's just so many perks of being American.
Right.
That we're just kind of handing over to an autocratic, biased government, right? Not a full autocracy yet. They haven't gotten there yet, but they're working their way there. So they're just being handed things, and for the convenience, right? Because, I don't want to fight for this one. This one's not worth fighting for. That's not worth fighting for. And it's just this slippery slope that we're sliding down. But like the historians will tell you, it's the slope that the Germans slid down in the 1930s, right? Because nothing was worth fighting for until it was too late, and then the war was already lost. The internal war in Germany. Then they went to the external wars. Like internally, the war was lost.
Right.
We're just suffering death by 1,000 cuts. Yeah, I look around at my white friends. I look around at my white community, and I wonder why more people aren't as, like daily enraged as I am. I don't know why it doesn't bother them more.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, Black folks are furious. What did James Baldwin say? I can't remember his quote, but it's one of my favorites, and I feel like a fool for not being able to remember it. But it is something to the effect of, to be an African American and living in America with any state of consciousness is to be enraged, right? I mean, you take the most mundane of, tasks that you do on any given day, and, they can turn into something, monumental. Right? Just because, right? You have an interaction with a law enforcement official, or you walk into the mall and somebody follows you, or somebody says to you, "Oh, wow, you sure are tall. Did you used to be a basketball player?" Slights like that happen constantly, right? And, many times people don't even realize it. And so now you start pulling back on DEI initiatives, right? Now we got to start all over again. Right? Because those are the things that people talked about in these DEI initiatives and in some of these, personal development training sessions, right? How to understand microaggressions, right? How to, embrace other cultures, right? How to understand when Diwali is, right? Do corporate, entities know when Diwali is? You gotta call, in India, in early November, you better check your calendar. There may be nobody at work, right? Because they've got the holiday they're celebrating. So, it really is a giant step backwards for us culturally, economically, and just our society as a whole. Because if you think about the way we feel, we've still not grown any closer as a community.
No,
Right?
we've scattered, we've broken further apart.
Right.
We've broken further apart. I here's what I don't get. I'm still searching for answers on this one. Like those people in rural, red country, Western North Carolina, it didn't go their way, right? They got unlucky with the hurricane. Help disappeared on them. Just basically pulled the rug out on their support and their rebuild.
Right.
Western Kentucky, Eastern Tennessee, Arkansas, right? Like, so in Arkansas, okay, so they sat there for like basically 6 weeks where they were denied FEMA support after hurricanes and flooding, to where the ruby red governor who worked for Trump is begging him. But how is the entire community, even if it wasn't your house that maybe is underwater,
Right.
how is the entire white Arkansas community not so mad that they got fucked over?
Hugely.
They
Bigly.
voted, they voted for this guy. No, nothing, half century, maybe a century of voting Republicans and voting red. And they get to this guy, Trump, who they probably voted 70% for twice. And shit goes sideways for them on a natural disaster. And they're just told, no, there's no money for them in that vast budget, that multi-trillion-dollar budget that everyone's fighting over. There was no money for them. Like, that's white people being treated like black people, right?
Yes, absolutely. And there's money for a parade.
Is there not like an absolute rebellion in the state of Arkansas? They're just going to roll with it and stay MAGA and stay in line. They're just going to stay in line, even though they just got
green.
Green.
I don't get it. Your number one asset, your home, and all your belongings. So I had the luxury of going to a lot of disasters in my television news career. I also had the luxury of going home, to a home that had not been
driving out of there.
Yeah. By homes that, to a home that had not been affected by those storms. And you just see the pain and the anguish in people's eyes. And you see them going through their stuff and picking out things that mean the world to them. And this guy has that little respect. It's not even his money.
It's our money.
It's our money.
And we want it spent this way. Yeah. I mean, I know I ranted on this yesterday. I don't want to have the deja vu rant, but like, I don't get it. This is white people. Second law, we know we're going to have a disastrous hurricane season, right? Like, we just can see it coming a mile away. The water's warm. The storms are getting stronger. And they're just going to barrel through the red states yet again. And you don't even have to root for it, which would be a horrible thing to do, right?
Right.
It's going to happen. Science, it's just going to happen. The planet is just going to do this to us because we've done it. This is what we've created with climate change.
Yep. We've abused it. And we're getting rid of the people that can warn us about.
So it's just going to be a decimation, and the government's not going to be there for people, and it's going to be a lot of white people, and it's going to be a lot of MAGA voters, and you can see it coming a mile away. And now we see how, these citizens are going to be treated after the fact. And I just wonder, like, do any of them worry about it, think about it? I mean, do they just assume it's not going to hit them? Is that going to be the game? It's just going to be a thoughts and prayers hurricane season, or kind of a thoughts and prayers society?
Right. I mean, because it's obviously, when these red states get hit, it's not going to be that seminal moment that turns the tide against the Trumpster, right? Like what's it going to take? We'll keep asking this question, like, what's it going to take?
It should. It definitely hurt George Bush, right?
No doubt.
Hurricane in New Orleans, so I mean, it does have the possibility to chip away at a president's popularity, but we're at the point where Trump's popularity is really shrunken down to hardcore MAGA.
Right.
And I mean, it's hardcore MAGA that's getting hit by natural disasters. It's hardcore MAGA also that's going to get hit by Medicaid cuts. So one of these things is going to, maybe wake some people up.
And Brock, I don't think people realize how many hospitals are going to close, like in red states. And that's going to be, think about the jobless numbers there, right? Think about the number of people that work in hospitals, right? And I told you about indigent care. Indigent care is going to go through the roof. We're going to have all kinds of problems. We're going to have homeless people, right? Resulting from these storms. And then we're not going to have people getting, jobs, rebuilding these communities because there's going to be no money for it. So, it's all a recipe for disaster. And the Mad King is the chef, turning the heat up on us as Americans. It's like we're fighting a war within. And there's no opposition.
I mean, this is where Project 2025 surprises me. Why not just throw a little bit of money at FEMA, throw a little bit of money at, Medicaid, just keep the poorest of the poorest, the rural white poor, the rural black poor, the urban black poor, just keep, don't cut the food stamps. Don't make people hungry. Hungry people could get violent, right? When you're hungry, you're going to you don't care about your fucking
right.
anything, right? Like you'll kill anybody to eat, right? So why not at least allow people to be at some subsistence level? And, give them cable TV and just keep them from getting too angry. Why is there even targeting and making the lives of the poorest amongst us worse? It seems like that just stirs the pot for revolution.
Right.
And that's the part of Project 2025 that I don't get. Assume that their thinking is, now you beat them down enough, they can't even stand up and you never have to worry about them coming around. I guess. I mean, what do you think? What do you think the strategy is behind it?
I think the hate in America is strong enough, and the Heritage Foundation people are so far removed from these people that they've got their feet on the necks of that they don't even see them as people.
They don't even see it. They don't feel it. They don't see it. It doesn't.
Don't know them, right? Because they've come from generations of wealthy, never been around poverty, never been around want and need, so it's easy when you've never been exposed to it and you only see it on TV, right? So I think it's the cruelty for cruelty's sake, because they have this ideology that they don't deserve anything, and it makes it that much easier to carry out, the plan in the playbook.
Got it. They just view them as takers. They're just drains on society. They're just draining.
And it's sad that we don't get to know the other side of the tracks. And, one of my favorite quotes from Tony Robbins, you never really start living until you start giving. And I don't know how these people sleep at night with these cuts. I saw a congresswoman running away from the cameras when they were asking her about her yes vote on Medicaid cuts. And it was awful. It was like, don't be a coward. Stand up and face the music. Tell us why 67,000 people in your district, are going to lose, health care, because you don't think they deserve it. Say that to us and see if they vote for you again.
But the concern more is to get primaried, because that one person may lose their job if they actually go against the vote. So better 67,000 people get ripped off of Medicaid than that one person risks losing their nice, cushy job with, health care.
And we're back to that toxic selfishness again. I can't take a stand here. I'm going to lose my $175,000 a year job and my great health care, my government health care and benefits. We should all have the kind of health care that Congress people have, people in Congress and the U.S. Senate. We should all have those kind of benefits. And then you would see different conversations starting to happen. It's frightening. It's sad. I hate that this is the state of our country. And, I think I sent you the blurb about a record number of Americans applying to go live in the UK. Record number since they started keeping stats, like 6,800 in 1 month. So, people are getting out of here. People are heading for the hills.
I know. And that bothers me, because I want them to stay, because I want people to stay and fight.
Right.
Like
Right.
we need people to stay and fight, not to find a safe haven for themselves. I
Right.
understand it, but I mean it's just gonna, it's gonna leave the rest of us behind to get our asses kicked, right? If people,
Yeah.
hightail it out of here.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. So we got some big news coming up in the Supreme Court. We're going to have to talk about that tomorrow. We've got some other news stories that we're following, including NPR suing a Yosemite scam for trying to defund them. And, we'll wake up, and if he doesn't die, tonight, we'll see what kind of fuckery he gets into tomorrow.
Yeah, the bottom line, if he doesn't, then we have to fight him tomorrow, right? Like basically we got to wake up every day and decide whether, figure out what the fight is for that given day.
Right. June 14th, get to DC. Do all you can to get to DC. It's Obama Appreciation Day. That's how I'm just going to start referring to it.
All right, Mark. Always a pleasure.
All right, buddy. Great to
All
see
right.
you.
Talk to
Peace.
you tomorrow. Bye.